back to another edition of Ain't That Right? I'm your host, the Duncan Dad. We are live here in Studio DD. Yes, the Philadelphia Phillies lock up the number 2 seed and they get the first round bye. Tons of fireworks last night at the game. 8 home runs, a team record, surpassing way back when they dropped 7. They've done that a couple times this year already, but 8 is now the new standard. Schwarber goes deep twice. Sosa has 3 of them. Boom, Stott, and Otto. Otto, what's up, Otto? Otto Kemp has earlier in the year, our friend John Foley, the program, has made us aware that Otto is now the all-time leading Otto home run holder for the Philadelphia Phillies franchise history, going way back to I think just right after the 1800s, which is kind of crazy. Other big baseball news: Cal Riley, the big dumper, hits 59 and 60. He passes Griffey Jr. He passed Mantle. He's got Judge in the rearview mirror. All of the MVP talk is way up for those two guys. Judge statistically has like the average, the on base percentage, but who would you say is more valuable to their team than that guy? Storybook season so far. Wins the home run derby. He's a catcher. He hits from both sides of the plate. Totally deserving of that MVP if it comes down to it. You could possibly see a shared MVP for the first time in a long time, and they both deservedly so could take that. In the National League, obviously, the big comparison and the big horse races, Shohei and Schwarber. Schwarber, closing in on the Phillies franchise record for most home runs. He also did something that hadn't been done in well over half a century. He passed Stan Musial as the all-time leader of switch hit, excuse me, the all-time leader of left-handed home runs off of left-handed pitchers. I'm talking about Riley. He's still in my head. The big dumper is still in my head. But records are falling every single day now because of this push for. I'd say we're almost in a live ball era again. We love it, but as our friend Jeff Passan was also saying, we have two guys setting records with home runs. You have Judge hitting his 50th. You've got a colossal collapse happening in Detroit. Shout out to Jake Reitma and everybody else up there in Detroit with your Tigers. Uh, Houston hanging on for a spot for dear life. Uh, National League just being crazy with the wild card as well. You have 3 teams that are mathematically still in contention, some going head to head. It's a great end of the season for those teams. There's a whole idea of clinching early. Is it better? Do you have, like the time off? Some people say yes, some people say no. There's stats out there saying that if you do clinch early, the odds of you getting to the World Series and winning it, kind of depreciate. There is a fever and a flow when it comes to baseball with sort of staying hot, staying in that rhythm, going out, especially with the pitching staff. When you have these extra days off, it's good to rest up these arms that have really been going hard. Obviously, the Phillies bullpen's having some minor issues and hiccups. With Duran, that's a couple times now where he's come in and he hasn't really held on to that one-run lead. Those things are going to be crucial, especially when you get in playoff situations when you only have a 5-game series, right? Like you need to really buckle those things down, get some guys some extra work. As for the other team across the parking lot, the Eagles, they went ahead and put Nolan Smith on IR. Defense is really depleted at this time going into Tampa Bay. The only advantage that Philadelphia has right now is that Mike Evans, unfortunately, nursing a hamstring. He'll be out a couple weeks, but definitely going to see the merit of the Eagles defense and how the Fangio calls a game this coming weekend. It's supposed to be hot, it's supposed to be humid. There's obviously a chance of weather when you get down there. He made a little quip it, and we can kind of get into our little bits of conversation today about priority practices principles. He said going down a day early and trying to acclimate yourself to the weather, or taking a pill for a solution real quickly, it's not going to happen in one day. You might get a feel, like, oh man, like this is different, but actually becoming familiar with a particular advantage or disadvantage or deficiency or skill takes time. And he was like, we don't have the training camp like we used to. We don't have the preseason like we used to. And during those preseason games, during those times where you can practice and become familiar with some of these elements, playing outside, playing in inclement weather, uh, you're more apt to be conditioned to address that when it hits you in the face, which is why we many times steer away from things that we don't want to necessarily be involved in or around, and then eventually, whether we like it or not, in some capacity, they find us right in life. Like, I was never supposed to be a part of that, but oh my gosh, now I'm here in the midst of it. Which is why it goes back to how you're handling yourself, what you're doing, who you're associating with, you know, your structure, your routine, you know, your comings and goings. Like the familiarity of it leads us to, okay, well, that person's there, they're supposed to be there, they've experienced that, they've moved on from that, they've gone through this, they can offer advice, etc. But it also puts you in a position of, I would say, not really authority, but a position of strength, because having that consistency, having gone through it, having this standardized routine to a point, sort of gives you an edge up to be like, okay, that's how I'm going to identify that person. You know, it's not like, well, here's the coworker, they're haphazard, you know, they're clocking in late, you know, they're leaving early, they're taking extended lunch breaks, extended smoke breaks, you know, calling out all the time. Like the reliability and the credibility that people are building in the actions that you're taking is cause and because of the effort that you put into it, right? I mean, you can have off days, you can have slow days, you can have days where you're not necessarily, you know, your best version of yourself, but more time than not, we look at players and we're like, all right, Brady, he's just like, he's going to give you a consistent effort every single time. This is the standard, and that's where you're at. Doesn't mean he's not going to get upset. Doesn't mean he's not going to yell at his teammates. Doesn't mean that he's not going to demand whatever from the other players. But it does mean that I know when I look at this particular person, place, or thing, I'm going to get a standard. And then when things are either challenged or called into question, or when you need to go to a different arena or a different place, you're like, you know what, like, we can go down and play in the weather. Why? Well, because our system is consistent. And if it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's hot, I'm still going to bring the same level of execution, the same level of discipline and commitment. Whereas you're hot one week, you're cold the next week, you have some injuries that get thrown in, you've got to, you know, dip, duck, and dive and adjust. Some people, some places, some teams, they can navigate that. And it's usually because when you look back, it's like, hey, they've got their locker room in order. They've got their house in order. They've got their practices in order. They're staying on top of their game. And yeah, even though things are happening in and around, guy got hurt, off-field drama, whatever, social media crap, there's a standard, right? And it's about like setting a standard for yourself, and not only like living up to it, but trying to like consistently be it and improve on it, so that when you are faced with these circumstances, not only are you self-aware of what you bring to the table and what you do, but the example that you're giving, the vibe that you're giving off is being seen and picked up by everybody else around you. Like, yeah, that's cool. Like, you know, I know that guy gives 110% all the time, and, you know, today defense was better, held him in check, but he's definitely not mailing it in. Think about some wide receivers, right? There was a guy in Pittsburgh, and great talent, and then there were times like, yo, what's going on here? And that gets back to our earlier conversation where, you know, talent, you know, it makes up for a lot of deficiencies. But there comes a point where the deficiency and the noise and all of the quote unquote drama becomes too much. And then you make a business decision. I'm going to be friends with that person. I'm not going to be friends with that person. They're going to stay part of our organization. They're not. I'm going to keep going down and trying this relationship. I'm not. And it's not a judgment on you and or them. It's just coming to the realization that the drive and the action, the principle, the mission, the course is not being shared by all the involved parties. Look at Chauncey Gardner-Johnson down in Houston. Good. It's a great defensive player. You know, definitely among the top of his peers, if not level one, level two ish. But so much chatter, so much locker room issue, so much non communication that Houston was like, you know what? We can't have this here. You need to go. And I'm sure they didn't want to do that after investing in him in the offseason. But that's what happens, right? Now, he'll go and he'll find another team. Someone else will run the metrics and say, hey, all right, I'll take that on. Right? There's always going to be somewhere, someplace, something that's going to welcome you and or someone else, organization will not, with open arms and give it that, second chance, third chance, whatever it is. But when you're doing that in your own life, you're trying to, I'll use a cliche word for the kids now, you're trying to level up, right? If you are proficient at writing, gaming, streaming, whatever it is, not that you don't want to help and share your talent with those who are just beginning or maybe those who are coming up. You want to offer that advice, but in order to challenge yourself, in order to grow, you've got to meet that on a particular peer level, on a particular relationship level. You have really good people in the world, right? You have really good people that want to work for particular companies, but they just don't meet on the right plane. You have people that get together, and as things progress, as times move on, as teams develop and teams evolve, it shows that, hey, you know what, like, I'm going this direction, they're going that direction. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I mean, people attach emotions to things all the time, and we always say, like, emotions are the driving force for, like, 90% of all of the decisions. Like, people are like, oh, give it a chance, it's okay, company's going to come around, team's going to come around, they're going to get more talent, blah, 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 till eventually you tap out. Right, things are going to change. You're going to run with the offense, going to get rid of this guy, and then eventually you're just like, you know what? It's not happening. And you can feel whatever kind of way about it, but eventually it comes to that crossroad where it's like, you know what? Gotta let this receiver go. Gotta let this quarterback go. Why? Well, because when XYZ situation presented itself, instead of the reaction being this, it went that way. Right? It's like, man, we're freaking out for. Stop freaking out. Like, system's good. We got it. Might not yield the same results, but the system is true. The system is viable. So when you see all of these teams growing through the season, that's why I said around like week 4, week 5, you get a quarter way through the season, you can start to see who's really going to make adjustments, who has the opportunity, who has the personnel, who has the locker room culture, who has the support of those around them to propel them forward and take the next step. Sometimes the next step is just course correcting. Sometimes the next step is becoming so efficient with what you're doing that the results are yielding a more significant impact. Okay, we're not winning games by, a field goal. We're not winning games by, 1 or 2 runs. We're getting to the point of, dominating the opponent or being so efficient with what that we're doing. That's you, right? And it's all individual. Like, you should be so proficient with your routine that it's not boring, but it's sort of like when I'll use the key in the ignition. I don't know if this works anymore with the push button cars, but you put your key in the ignition and you turn it, and before you crank down, all those little lights light up, right? And you're doing like a systems check, right? You start up your phone, you restart your phone. It's like optimizing apps, your computer, updating, optimizing, and that's what we are working towards in our daily lives every single day. Finding that perfect routine, that startup. So when it starts up, it's like, yep, okay. Health is health is in order to where it needs to be, or where it's going, or it's growing. Emotions are in check. Mental, stability is in check. Food, hydration, spirituality, whatever it is. It's like, okay, boom, 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 boom. Why? So I'm ticking all these boxes. I'm checking them all. Everything's in place. Now, faced with whatever sort of circumstance, good, bad, right, left, up, down, happy, sad, I mirror it based off of all these previous checks. And if it comes to a point where system update, safety update, security update, emotional health update, take a vacation update, you're willing to see it and then go over here to the toolbox and make, all right, well, I can make that happen at XYZ point by doing ABC. Okay, fine, boom, take it, update, reset. Why? To freshen things up again, because a lot of times we feel like we get caught in these routines and it's like, go, 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 go. Everything's fine, it's all working out. And then it becomes autonomous and you're getting the benefits. You're staying here on a certain plane and plateau. And it's like, you know what? Need to just power it down, run it through its test again, and see, all right, do I need to update something? Okay, I don't. What do I need to do? Maybe I need to give more attention to this particular vehicle or this priority practice than this over here. Why? Well, because it's great that I'm getting to the gym and I'm walking and I'm doing whatever and I'm eating okay, but you know what, like, maybe I need to pay a little more attention to that. All my relationships are great, everything is fine, stuff with my boss is great, my teammates are great. Maybe I need to open more communication, talk, listen, whatever it is, right? Like, you're trying to establish those patterns just so you're in a better headspace, just so you're in a better space with what it is that you're doing, right? Because like all the confusion, all the chaos, now there's an environment that goes on, and then the weather's going to be bad, and then there's the travel involved, and now you're overwhelmed. And now players are getting hurt. Who's going to step up? What's going to happen? What are we going to run? I'm hearing all the chatter from everybody else on the outside, and this guy doesn't look good. She doesn't look good. The organization's really bad. And all those little things start creeping in. And if you're allowing yourself to just be ruled and run by that, then it affects your productivity. It affects the space that you're in. And then it leaches into every other thing that goes on in your world. It does, right? There is that, quote, slippery slope of things that happen, that butterfly effect, right? And being prepared to address them as they present themselves, it's critical. It's absolutely critical, because it's never going to be 100% right all the time, right? And when it is 100% right all the time, not only does like great things happen, but like you don't always recognize it until it's finished, right? The Eagles last year, right? They run the table in the playoffs, score the most points, fine-tuned machine. Oh my gosh! And when you look back on it, you're like, man, like there's a legit argument that that particular run, that particular team was like one of the best teams ever assembled. Homing call, of course, but look at the productivity, look at the efficiency, look at all these components. But when you're going through it, you're like, all right, well, we're just showing up for practicing, we're doing what we need to do, everyone's kind of happy in a good space. So like enjoying that and calling out on the little journey, knowing that like you're never going to see the whole picture until it's done, right? But you can enjoy making the cake and eating the cake, right? But have to be willing to be like, oh, there's a shell that fell inside the batter, I need to take it out. Okay, that, little inconvenience, no big deal. Why? Because I have all this stuff lined up for me to adjust. And that's only with practice. That's only with doing. That's only with going through it. That's only with taking the information from other individuals who may have shared the same experience and pulling from it everything that's relevant to you. Maybe things aren't relevant to you. Maybe you can see how people reacted, how they didn't react, what they did, what they didn't do, what you would do in those situations. Would it yield the same outcome? Would it not yield the same outcome? Would it be healthy? Would it not be healthy? Right? Like, I'm sure they're all telling everybody now, like, gotta hydrate, make sure you have your electrolytes, we'll make sure you have, extra, Powerades or Gatorades or whatever, the licensed brand is now on the sideline. have a big cooling fans, but you don't need to worry about that in some other places, right? Just it's one more thing that gets added onto your plate when you go to a particular place, situation, setting. And there is a point where you can have all the necessary resources to address those things and still be overwhelmed. Why? I don't know. Maybe you haven't been through it. Maybe it's something that wasn't prepared for to the level that it needed to be prepared for. Maybe it's just something that exceeds that with which you want to continue to put yourself through. Right? I'm a great runner, that's awesome, but I'm not going to go out to Mojave Desert and start, running 10Ks in the desert. Why? There's no way I'm ready for that. Not prepared for that. Even at, peak whatever, and I've got all the little gel packs and all the little waters and everything, completely different environment, completely different animal, completely different beast, completely different set of situations and circumstances. But we find ourselves in these, I won't say predicaments, but we find ourselves in these situations, sometimes by our own choices, sometimes because of other people's choices, sometimes because of the lovely third party that we always talk about, where it always seems to come up, right? Something always seems to come up in some regard. Could be good, and you could be underprepared. Could be bad, you could be overprepared. Like, being ready for whatever presents itself, that's kind of the key. And then being surrounded by other individuals, organizations, partners, places, and things who are understanding of how it is that you are interpreting it and how you're responding to it. And when you have that and you have that support, then you really come into a good situation, right? You really come into where, hey, this person got my back. Hey, this person understands that, I got to figure this out. Hey, this person knows that this makes, the day, better or worse. But regardless, they're not going to sit there and, cast a judgment and basically like throw you to the curb. Or they're going to, throw you under the bus, so to say, and, pass blame or whatever. It's important that those things and those relationships and those organizations and the team meetings, like all that's cultivated. Like you've got to be willing to go through it, grow, make the tough decisions, embrace the journey, have fun with it, but not afraid to call out the BS. And we all, like nowadays, like everybody wants to call out stuff. Sometimes it's just a natural progression of life and growth. Yes, that's going to suck. Yes, that's not the greatest reaction. Yes, that's not really how I wanted them to, react to me. Right? But a lot of times the reaction is like a reflection of what you're putting out. Right? And if it's not a reflection of what you're putting out, then you can stand strong in the fact that you know who you are, where you're at, what you're doing, who you're with, who you align with, what your priorities are. And it lands to the side of truth, right? It lands to the side of authenticity. And we do have a major issue about people who are, being publicly authentic but privately disgenuine, if that makes sense. You see, oh, the stuff's going on, it's all great, it's amazing, blah, 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 blah. But really, behind the scenes, it's completely different. It's not saying that's anything wrong with that. You want to present your best self, but you want to try to be as consistent through the whole thing. I struggle with it, you struggle with it, everybody struggles with it. But again, having that team, the people around you that see you for you, that push you to be the best version of you in whatever circumstance, situation, organization, relationship comes along, yeah, that's critical, that's important. That's why we always say, like, you are going to find people, places, and things that aren't necessarily that with which you were, like, brought up in and around, right? Sometimes you got to go, like, outside of your box to find that, right? Get out of that comfort zone. Why? Because like the familiarity sometimes breeds contempt, and there is something to that where if all you're doing, all you're hearing, all you're seeing is the same, the same, the same, the same, the same, then you become fixated on one particular voice, one particular opinion. Having a voice and having an opinion, one should be of your own and your own choosing. Are you going to have environmental influences? Yes. Social influences? Of course. Relationship influences? Absolutely. But one of the greatest things for a person is that they want to have something that is theirs, right? It's theirs. It's their opinion. It's their voice. It's their conviction. And you can have a million different things, right? You can not like cake but love cupcakes. Like, well, it's the same thing. Well, no, not to them. And why is it important? It's important because you're choosing something to champion or believe in or pursue or go through or persevere with because it's important and essential and meaningful to you. And why it's important and essential and meaningful than to let everyone speak on who they are and not be so fixated with this drowning drum of this is how it is, this is how it is, this is how it is, this is how it is. In many instances, we know, quote, this is how it is because of all these other factors. But saying that there is only one particular way of doing something, right, the right way or the wrong way, there's some factual things that are right and wrong in the sense of, I would say, not even right and wrong. Right and wrong is some more thing, like valid or invalid, right? Like you turn the heat on the stove and you put your hand over it, it's going to get burned. It's not like, oh, put the heat on the stove and put your hand over it, you won't get burned. Like that's factually, positive and negative. Like that is a fact. But just because I like, Coca-Cola and someone else likes Pepsi doesn't make any of us inherently right and or wrong. It's a personal preference, personal choice. Now, using that and playing in like the gray area with it, yeah, it's where you have to kind of watch yourself. Now, we like marketing. We like, things being, made appealing to us. But the greatest thing that you could ever do or have or whatever is having that personal opinion, that personal choice to make it your own. That's why some people like white socks and some people like dark socks. That's why some people like long socks and some people like funny socks. It's a sock. It's got a function. But beyond that, so who's right and who's wrong? When people tell you, oh, well, if you do this, you should have that. Maybe you don't. Right? And that goes back to knowing you and your practices and your principles, how you're presenting yourself, so that you do have standards, you do have convictions, you do have passions, you do have a system, you have a routine. So when you're faced with something, you're not like, I don't know. Or, hey, yesterday you said you like white socks, today you like dark socks, the next day you like funny socks. Like, well, what is it? Well, I don't know. Well, yesterday we were at the funny sock convention, they're your favorite socks. Do you really like them? I mean, because today we're here at the short socks, and right? Don't be afraid to find something like that. Don't be afraid to find something, an opinion, a conviction, a passion that you align with, that you love, a dream, and go after it and chase it. It might come to fruition, it might not. But enjoy that journey. Be willing to change. Be willing to reset. Be willing to update the system in order to get that. And if it doesn't present itself in whatever capacity it is, people, places, things, relationships, organizations, jobs, careers, whatever, know well to yourself that you did everything within your power to make it reality. Why? Because you showed up, you were consistent, you stood on your convictions, you have your passions, you were who you were, you worked towards this, and then either it ran its course or it took the next step. But you're not going to do that if one day you're in, the next day you're out, the other day you're here, now you can't figure this out. Then they're like this, and they're like that. Job says they don't support me, but they don't want to give me any extra work. They give me extra work, but they don't want to, like, consistency, right? The consistency of it has got to be there. But the consistency starts with you. Because once you're consistent with yourself, then you won't accept that lack of consistency from the outside, right? You always hear those individuals who are going through something in their life, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I'll be there. It's great. I'll reach out. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, let me know. Blah 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 blah." Right? It's like the funeral thing too, right? Like someone passes away and like, "Oh my gosh, it's so bad. Oh oh," and not this in genuine empathy or sympathy, but then time passes, life starts to creep back in, and the flooding of phone calls, houses, text messages, whatever, just goes away. And it's like, wow, I thought this was different. I thought people were gonna step up. I thought people were gonna be there. It's why like when you make these commitments to people, regardless of what it is, you have to follow through with it. That's part of the privilege and part of the responsibility of being connected, right? Like that comes along with it. But that goes back to you, because if you're not connected and you're not responsible for yourself, there's no effing way you're going to be it for anybody else. You're not. Do you struggle with it every day? Do people fight and go? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Why? Because there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of environment. There's a lot of vices. There's a lot of, wantonness. There's a lot of, social chatter. But getting back to yourself, resetting, updating, following through, being able to adjust, taking your system into any kind of environment, and knowing that even in the midst of all this motion, chaos, whatever it is, you are going to be the same here as you're the same over there. It doesn't mean you can't let your guard down around people that you love and trust and do the same for you. Because you should have one person or two people where you can 100% be authentic yourself, and so much that, not that you're not the same person with them, but you strip away all of those defense mechanisms where you're like, I'm going to let this person see my emotions, good and bad. I trust this person not to cast any sort of critical judgment against me, instead offer corrective criticism, or to point out areas where I may and or may not be hurting myself, or I may be getting like rose-colored glasses, right? Like a reality check from your best friend or your close confidant, whatever. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Why? Because there's a level of you being secure and in a safe place and with a safe person, or a safe environment, or a safe organization where but businesses will tell you all the time, got your back, got your back, got your back. And then something happens. You didn't get the TPS report. You didn't send this in. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I got to let you go. It says policy here. Dude, I thought you had my back. Like, I came in, break my back doing this, that, and the other thing, and now I got to go because this? Well, that's just how it is, blah, blah, blah. So, like, when you have that in yourself, and you look for that in other people, and it's there, and it's recognized, invest in that, work on that, give it time, let it grow, how to have space, let it breathe, champion it, support it in any kind of way, any kind of environment, any kind of team setting, any sort of personal relationship. Why? Because you're becoming a better version of yourself, they're becoming a better version of themselves, the team is becoming the best version of themselves, and it'll yield good results. But if all of this other existential stuff on the outside is way too much, there's way too much chaos, way too much control, way too much weather, way too much injuries, blah, 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 at some point there has to be a period, stop, full stop. And it's like, can we update the app? Can we update the phone? Can we update the software? Or do we do a hard reset? Right? And everybody knows you do a hard reset, what do? Unless you backed it up, you lose a bunch of stuff. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But those are the things that we need to continue to work on as our days go forward. All right, everybody, I'm going to make it a short one today. I have some work to attend to at home. Tomorrow I will be back in with Sheila Book, K4 Wins. We'll be running the shows for them. Be sure to check out all the other programs on the Coastal Sports Digital Network. Also, keep track on the USF men's hockey team as their games broadcast live right here on the station from the beautiful city of Tampa, Florida. Playoff baseball. By the time we get back next week, we'll be ready for playoff baseball. Season ends on Sunday. Great Major League Baseball races. Ryder Cup kicks off. full slate of college football games. Seems like every game nowadays there's a ranked opponent. It's ranked versus ranked. I think the only game that I'll really be tuning into will be the Penn State and Oregon game. Not that I'm a Penn State fan or Penn State homer. It's just that I always feel as if Penn State sometimes is ranked a little bit higher than they should. And I don't know how they're really going to handle Oregon's offense. Oregon, though, coming across the country. It's in Happy Valley. It might be crappy weather. Who knows? Should be fun. Enjoy the weekend. Go Phillies. Red October starting. Take care.